Tonight, the workshop it's a challenge. I have tons of palettes. So for instance, this is one of my favorite ceramic palettes. And notice that it's not clean, right? It's full of watercolor paint. And I don't just have one of these full of watercolor paint. I have about 10. So what I've done is I've pulled 4 of them for tonight. So I call this the Dirty Palette Challenge. And so I pulled 4 of them for tonight. There's that one. I love this one because it's also one of the ceramic, and it has the little dips along it so that you can take your brush and easily set your brush on it like that. I really like this one. And so you can see there's still a bunch of paint in there. So the objective is to try to, over the course of this workshop, use up most, if not all, of this paint because I would like to clean these instead of them being, dirty like this, right? So that's why I call it the Dirty Palette Challenge. Here's another one of my favorite palettes for watercolor painting. Oh my gosh, right? Look at that. All of these wells here for putting your paint, for mixing your colors, all in here. It's a nice, beautiful big one. Again, this happens to be a ceramic palette, but look, it still has paint in it. So I have to use up this paint. uh, watercolor paint, it can be expensive depending on which ones you're buying. And B, they just dry up. You can leave them to dry up, and then I can just rehydrate this and then keep painting with it. So I don't like to wash this away if there's still paint in there. Oh, there we go. Watercolor, etc. over on YouTube said, hello, how are you? Thank you, thank you. Welcome in. And PG Moulton over there also on YouTube. Welcome in. And who do we have? Sea Gator over on Whatnot. Welcome in, welcome in. But yes, that's the beauty. That's one of the beauties of watercolor is that you can just let it dry and then just re-wet it. So we are going to be re-wetting these palettes and trying to clean at least one of them. We'll see. That is the challenge, right? I have one more here, and I'm going to show you sometimes when I'm working what I'll do. For instance, I don't know if you've ever seen one of these round ones. Believe it or not, I bought this round ceramic palette at my church thrift store for 25 cents, y'all. And it's ceramic. It's a really nice one. And I was like, oh, yes, I'll take those. There were 2 of them, 2 or 3. I'll take those for 25 cents each. But you can see here that I was doing something with some of my Daniel Smith paints. And so, in order to know what color it is, I just took the tube and threw it in there so that I know what's on this palette, because most of these palettes like this one and this one, I mean, these other ones, I have no clue what brand or color of paint it is. I mean, I know they're good quality because I have tons of good quality watercolors, but I don't know what the colors are exactly. So these are 4 different palettes that I have here that we're going to work with tonight and see if maybe by the end of the session we can clean one of them, right? Now, um, oftentimes when I need a palette and I go and I grab a palette and it has a bunch of paint in it like this, I will sit down and have a session of just using up whatever paint is in there so I can clean that palette. And when I do that, I like to grab certain books. So I'll be putting a link to these books and the supplies that I show you in the description of the video on YouTube later tonight after the show is over. Yes, thank you, Watercolor, etc. Said this is a free art class secret, or an art class secret. Yes. So these are a couple of the books that I like to grab to do just um, quick paint. Because if you don't know what to paint, okay, I've got all these beautiful colors. What am I going to paint? Well, just grab yourself a book on quick watercolors. So you see how this says 15-minute watercolor masterpieces? Oh my gosh, I love this artist. Here, I don't know how to pronounce her last name. Anna, what does it say? Kolodich, it looks like, something like that. But she has several books which are 15-minute. So it's 15-minute watercolor masterpieces, 15-minute oil pastels. I love her books. She has a whole series of them. So I definitely highly recommend this one. As you see all the tabs in here? These are all the cool things that I like that are in her book. As a matter of fact, some of the things that are in her book here, um, I've started to paint on just a random piece of watercolor paper, right? And that's the whole idea. It's like, I just, if I want to clear a palette, I just want to have something fun that I can paint and like exercise my painting muscles, right? The other book that I like for this type of project is called Watercolor Success in 4 Steps. This is an even simpler book than the last one that I showed you. And it's by Marina Bakasova. So down here, Marina Bakasova, Watercolor Success in 4 Steps. And it's just packed. I didn't I didn't put tabs in this one because it's like every one of them is just a quickie, couple of steps and you, ta-da, you have something done. And the steps are just so easy to follow. Highly recommend as a first book, if you want to give somebody a gift, maybe a little watercolor set and then a book, give them this one. Okay. The other one is great too, this 15-minute watercolor masterpieces. But I would say if you were to give them one book as a beginner, this is the one right here, Watercolor Success in 4 Steps. Okay. And see where it says 150 projects. Yeah, that's why I said there's no need for me to to tab this one because everything in here is awesome. All right. So we're going to be using those books in order to follow along with some of the projects to use up some of this paint in our dirty palette paint challenge. Now, what kind of brushes do I use? I use watercolor brushes. But some of the brushes are considered mixed media brushes. So, for instance, one of my favorite brands is Princeton, the Princeton brush company. And so these are their what they call velvet touch because their handles are they're kind of they have this really neat velvety finish to them. And what's also nice about them is it's not like a lacquer that is put on the outside of the brush handle, the wood handle. And so it doesn't flake. I don't know if you have ever experienced that before, but a lot of times when you get your brushes wet, I don't know if you can see that on this one, but the lacquer is coming off, right, of the wood underneath. But when you get a good quality brush like these Velvet Touch brushes from Princeton, there's none of that. No flaking. It's not going to flake. There's just something they do with the surface of it. Now, also part of the Princeton Velvet Touch line, they have some of these brushes. This is what do they call this one? A wash brush. They call it 1/2 inch wash brush. But this one is actually kind of a translucent plastic. What I like about these is they have an angled bottom to them. Do you see that little angle on the bottom right there? And that comes in handy when you want to scrape something. Uh, and so this works beautifully for that. There are different ones that have that. Well, the wash brushes have them, and then the wash brushes come in different size tops to them. There's another one that's a little bit smaller to make smaller marks with on the end, but they're nice and hard on the end. And yes, even with watercolor, if you want to make lines, while the paper is still wet, you can actually use this hard plastic end to make marks in your paper. It's very cool. Now, the other thing that I like about the Velvet Touch brushes is that they're not just for watercolor, they also work for your acrylics. So they do, I think I've seen online where they call them mixed media. You can use them with acrylics, oils, or watercolor. Now, mine, I save most of the time for watercolor um, because Lordy knows I have so many brushes. These are some of my favorites from Pebeo. And then this is also the Princeton brush line called their Select line with these turquoise handles. So these, what they call yellow Taklon like this are my favorites for doing acrylic painting with. And I have plenty of them. So there's no need for me to use my Velvet Touch for acrylics. I keep my Velvet Touch for my watercolors to keep the tops of them nice and ready to receive, thirsty, ready to receive the watercolors. The other thing, of course, we're going to need is some watercolor paper. So I have a couple of types of watercolor paper here. I have a watercolor block from Famui, and a block means that it is glued. The paper is glued on this side, this side, this side, and this side. And then at the top here, where it says open, there's a little spot right there in the glue where there's no glue. So you can get in there with a palette knife and remove it. Okay. What I like about this, especially if you have, again, somebody who's a beginner, is that the paper will not bow as you're painting on it. As a matter of fact, this one was originally on a block. And I like doing things like that, experimenting on a block, because then I don't have to worry about the paper curling on me as I'm painting with it. The only thing with a block is in order to get to the next sheet, you got to finish what's on the block. And Lordy knows I have lots of blocks that have partial payment or partial paintings on them that are not done yet. Right. That's the only drawback. My other favorite studio paper that I call my studio workhorse is the Canson XL watercolor paper. It's 140 pounds, nice, heavy, made for watercolor. I even do finished artwork on this, although some professional artists are like aghast that I would use this for finished artwork. But I do it all the time because it's acid-free paper, it's beautiful paper. And if you make something and you love it, go ahead and mat it and put it in a frame. All right. Don't be a paint snob. So let me get to a blank page. My favorite of the Canson XL has a paper pad. Welcome in. I see some new folks coming in over on Whatnot, by the way. They have a paper pad that has like a tape up here. This is my favorite, which is the spiral bound version of it. And I think it has 30 or 32 pages in it. But in the spiral bound one, there's a little, uh, what would you call that, where you can crease it right here and then tear the page out for 9 by 12. So most of the time when I'm in the studio and I'm working on a small table, I use the 9 by 12 size, but I have lots of bigger sizes of paper as well that when I have my other desk and it's cleared off, I can work a lot bigger. And that's wonderful. Okay, let me see. What else do we need? Of course, if you want to draw something, you have use a pencil and an eraser. And the reason I mention that is most of these books will have a little, you see how there's a little illustration and then they go into the painting. So if you want to do the illustration, then have a pencil and eraser on hand. And this is my favorite water container because we're going to need, I usually have 2 containers of water while I'm painting. And hey, Kimmercast, welcome in over on Whatnot. So this one is, what is it, Faber-Castell. And I love it because it's collapsible. So you can travel with it, which is amazing. And then also you see that what they call the tulip edge is so that you can, again, put your brushes, use it as a brush rest as you're working. And it's fabulous. I have 2 of them right now and I'm considering getting another one so I can have one in my travel bag at all times, right? Okay, so I'm going to go up over top of the table. Let's start with one of the palettes. How about that? So um, this one, this one has so much paint in it. Oh my gosh, there's so much paint. And so this one will not get done today, but the reason that I put this one in with the mix is because it has my dark, dark blue, right? So this is an indigo. It has something that's similar to either a naphthol red or a cadmium red. So that's a nice deep red. Um, and the deep red I usually use as just as a red, but if I want to mix colors, say to get a purple or something, then I like to use this magenta over here. So I've got the two reds, and you can see I have three different blues right here. I have two yellows up here, an orange, and some green. So this one, there's a lot of color in here, and I will not get through that tonight because that is just too much for me to finish in this session. But I wanted to have that palette available because if one of these other palettes here that I'm trying to clear out doesn't have enough of a particular color, like for instance, this one does not have the indigo in it. So I may need to grab a darker blue from that one. So yes, I do have multiples. And then this one, you can see there's like a blue here and some greens, some blue greens, and a little bit of yellow left. This is going to be our first palette that we're going to be able to finish. Yay, and get it cleaned up. I can't wait. So I'm actually going to start with this one. I'm going to put this one on the side. Let's see, how can we arrange this so I can put this up here? Oop, let's get rid of that. And then that way, let's see. I want to be sure you can still see that. Yes. Okay, good. And this one will just be off to the side if I need to grab another color from it, because there's not very much red in here. It looks like I used up the reds and oranges right here, right? Um, and then let's see here. And we'll go ahead. Here's our paper. Yay. Now, before I start working with my watercolors, I like to mist them. Okay, so I'm going to spray them. Look out, let's move these, move those out of the way a little bit so I can move it up even a little bit more. Okay, cool. Um, so, okay, where's my spray bottle? So much for misting it. It looks like it's at my other table. Okay, well, if I don't have a spray bottle, then I just use a dropper. So I'll just put a little bit of water on these. The idea is to get them what we call get your watercolors juicy, right? Just add a little bit of water and we'll see what we can get going here. Yeah, I can't believe I normally have a spray bottle in here and a spray bottle in the other room, and oh well. There we go. But we've got water in there. Let me go ahead and juice this one up too while we're at it so that the paint is ready when I'm ready for it. There we go. Not too much, just a little bit of water, enough to loosen the paint up because once it dries, it's a little bit hard. Okay, there we are. All right, let's evaluate what colors we have in here. And again, this is a dirty palette challenge. So the idea is what can we do to empty these palettes out so that I can reclaim them and have them for new projects, right? I'm using the size 6 uh, Princeton Velvet Touch. The funny thing is, I don't know if you can see that, but you can hardly even see the 6 anymore because I've used this brush so much. So let's just see. This one right here is almost empty. Hallelujah. And it's kind of a bluish, like an ultramarine blue. I'm just seeing what colors I have here to start at. This is a blue, right? Yeah. Oh, okay. That's phthalo blue. That's your cyan color, like what you would find in your printer. Ooh, nice. That's a sap green right there. Fabulous. This looks like, yeah. Okay. This one is emerald green, or what you would call PG7, your color mixing green. Ooh, this is a nice light green called May green. All right. What do we have in here? Almost nothing, which is hallelujah for that too. I'm glad, glad, glad. Let's see. Okay, these are almost empty, which is great. That means they'll be Waiting for new paint. I don't have to worry about those two right there. Those all consider to be done. And then what do we have? Ooh, a nice dark blue. Let's see. Kind of a Prussian-y blue right there. I like that. I always like to have a dark blue on my palette. Okay, this one I'm going to consider clean right now. Yay. Um, this looks like a sap green. Let's see. What do we have here? Yeah, like a, no. Okay, I know what that is. That's a cobalt green. This lemon yellow, which is good for mixing. And then this looks sort of like a Hansa yellow, medium or something, bright. See, when I don't know what the brands or the actual colors are in here. So we're just going to go with what we see. So let me kind of clean that one out. My mother-in-law used to call something like that an OB joyful, meaning that we don't have to do anything else with it. This green up here is where I was just color mixing. So I have a bunch of color mixes up here, some purple and stuff. There's so little here that I'm going to go ahead and clear that out. That's ready to be cleaned. Wow. It's already halfway there, isn't it? And then the red here is kind of a cherry red, and there's not that much of it, right? All right, let's look in the books and see what we have that can kind of work with this color combination, right? I'm thinking because we have lots of greens and blues. Well, for the blues, one of my favorites is to do berries. Actually, there are some berries in here that are both greens and blues. So this is the 15-minute watercolor masterpieces. And so in here, she shows you how to do the blueberries. So she's showing you your color combination, your lighter green, your darker green, a dark blue, and a light blue, right? And then she also shows you some color mixing combinations, which is nice as well. Um, so we're just going to do some blueberries. Very simple, dimple blueberries. I want you to notice with the blueberries and these other berries how this artist is leaving. Do you see how she's leaving the white space right there? And that is kind of a trick to do up front to not have to go back in later to add your whites. Is if you're thinking about it ahead of time, just leave your whites. So let's use a little bit lighter version of the blue to start with. And I'm just going to do some blueberries here. My air conditioning is pushing my paper all over the place. So I'm just going to do the base for the blueberries, okay? So nothing too dark because we're going to come back on top of it with other like darker colors. So this is just getting a general roundness going and leaving a little bit of white space there. I love doing blueberries. I actually learned to do blueberries in watercolor, to paint blueberries in watercolor from Christy Rice. So she's an artist that has a very busy channel on YouTube, and it's Christy with a K, Kristy, Rice. Okay, here we go. And let's do another one, maybe sitting over here. Okay. And I've left some white spaces. So let me bring that up closer to you. See the little white spaces on there? So for the berries. Now the other berries that she has here on the next page are gooseberries. Oh, they're so cute. Little gooseberries. So we're going to do some little gooseberries right now, right along with that. And so let's get some of that green because we have some nice looking greens on here, right? So we're going to start with a light green, sort of like this. And then we'll do and the blueberries are a little more round. The gooseberries are a little more oval. Okay, so this is just sort of the background color for the gooseberries. You want to get the general shape in there. Now, what I didn't do on that one is I didn't leave space, a white space. So let's focus on leaving a little bit of white space on this one right here. Nice. Okay, so the gooseberries, instead of being round, are a little oblong. And I hope that some of you, oh, thank you, Watercolor, etc., said on YouTube, if you will, please hit like for Tristina. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. And if you're over on Whatnot, you can hit near the bottom of the screen where the shop is showing up. You can press there and little hearts will start flying up. That's always fun too. I always like to do that for other people who are having their shows on Whatnot. It's fun. So here we go again. I'm just going to leave this time a white mark a little bit further down. Okay. So again, these are going to be oblong shaped. And then in her picture in the book, she has some that are overlapping. So let's just take one right here and make it look like it's overlapping this one right here. And we left some white space in there. Okay. So we're going to turn those into gooseberries. These are almost dry, not quite though. Okay, so let's go back. Since we're already in the green, one of the things that she shows in the book here for the blueberries, oops, is some leaves. So let's use that same green that we were just playing with and just put a few little leaves in there. Okay. And we'll start with the lightest. So we'll just do, again, the light green. And I'll just do a couple of leaves like this. That's actually like really, 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 really light. Let's make it a little bit darker. Maybe grab some of this darker that's up here. Okay, let's do a leaf right here. Nice. I'm just sort of stalling to let the blueberries dry and the gooseberries dry, the first layer. And we're going to put some more paint on there as well. Okay, let's do another one down here. And I'm doing it like with two C's, right? I'm doing one C and then another C. Well, one going in one direction, one going in the other direction to create the leaves there, right? And let's put another one over here like this. She doesn't show any leaves with the gooseberries, so I'm just going to do the leaves with the blueberries. And where else can we put one? This is just play and using up paint, right? And practicing. Practice, practice. The more you practice your watercolor, the better you're going to get, right? So, and that's why I love using books, is just to make sure that I don't have to think too much. I just open the book to a page and go, oh, okay, that looks like fun. Now, this is a little bit green, but I'm not going to worry about it. Um, dark blue. Woohoo! So now we're going to come back in with the darker color on the blueberries. Nice. That's why I always, when I have a color, like a blue color, a green color, a red color, a yellow color, I like having a light version, a medium version, and a dark version, if I can. Sometimes, like with this project, I'm just using the light and the medium, or the light and the dark. But most of the time, whether I'm doing color pencils, I'm doing pastels, whatever I'm using, I usually like to have a light, medium, and dark of the color. So let's see here. We're just going to put a little bit of dark in here. So when you're doing your darks, imagine your light source. So what I just did was I put it dark on this side, the right side. And so that means the light source is going to be coming from this side, this angle right here. So I don't want to do this one with a light source this way and this one with a light source this way, right? The light source is going to be coming from one direction. So now I can drop in here like this. And if the shape is not right, you can work with the shape. Same thing here. Right, so I'm just dropping that darkness in there. This one's a little bit wet still. on that one, which is fine. And then let's put some of the dark here. There we go. Nice. Now this one is a super dark, so I'm actually picking up some of the color here. It's like a little too dark and wet, so I'm picking up some of it. And here too, some of it in the middle. If I pick up some from the middle of the pigment, then it will leave the darkest around the edges, okay? While it's still wet, I can just pick a little bit of that up. There we go. So then it gives you the illusion of having more colors on there. So there you go. Drop that in. I need to give those a minute to dry, right? And then there's also a few of them have a super dark center. So let's grab very concentrated right here on the brush. And I'm just going to sort of do this. So I've got, right, because there's the blueberry. Actually, what I like to do that they don't show is sometimes the blueberry has a little bit of fuzz coming out of the top of it, right, from the where it was growing. So I'm just adding a dark, dark, dark of the blue there. I usually don't use black on my palette unless I want to mix olive greens, believe it or not. Yellows and blacks gives you amazing olive greens. So I just don't have black on any of these palettes. Let's do this one, maybe over here, like that. Same thing. So I'm just sort of doing a circle and then putting little bits. Yeah, it's looking more like a blueberry now. And for this one, maybe I'll do it more over here. So it's only part way, and then do some of this coming out like that. Right? You see there? The blueberry can be turned away to where the floral part is back here. But let's see. I think for the heck of it, I'll put it on every one of these. I'll do the round part over here. There we go. And then a little bit more here. And I'll put this one going this way like this. There. A few dots inside. Can't hook. There we go. So now they look more like, they have a little more dimension to them because you're putting in multiple colors. Okay. And let's go back to the gooseberries before we work on these leaves. And I'm just referencing her pictures. She has a little brown nub at the top, and then she also has some lines because the gooseberries have little lines going on them. So let's get a darker green. Oh yeah, this is so pretty. I think this is the sap green. So now we're going to determine where are these going. So this is going like this, right? It's almost like they're almost like little mini watermelons, aren't they? And then there's like a little sort of tail right there. Okay, so then we'll do this one over here. Hello there. Like that, like that. There. Gooseberries. And we'll put some lines in here just for something fun and simple, right? You don't always have to do like super complicated uh, artwork to get a really nice result. Mind me asking what you're, where I'm located. North Coast over on Whatnot. I am in Florida, on the west coast of Florida, close to the Tampa, St. Pete area right now. And yeah, that's where I am broadcasting from. Actually, I teach in-person classes at the Herrig Art Center, which used to be Art Center Manatee, and it is in Bradenton, Florida, just north of Sarasota. So I teach in-person classes there in mixed media collage, Asian brush painting, urban sketching, and composition and color. So those I'll be putting those up on my website this week. Um, if you're interested in in-person classes here in Florida. Um, and most of the time I do my watercolor because there are a lot of watercolor teachers at the art center. So I don't teach watercolor at the art center right now. I just teach watercolor. Ah, you visited St. Pete and said it's a beautiful city. Yes, watercolor, etc. My daughter used to live in St. Petersburg. She now lives in Athens, Greece. With her husband and daughter. But yeah, so St. Pete, gorgeous. Gorgeous. Sarasota also is quite beautiful. Okay, so there are our gooseberries, but for the gooseberries, oh, and while we have this sort of darker green, we're going to drop some of that darker green onto these leaves over here. So remember how I said you can give dimension with more than one color, right? You have your light color, your dark color. So we're going to add a little bit of dimension to these leaves by dropping in. Let's imagine the light source is coming from over here. So we're going to drop in some darker color over here on this side of the leaf because it's more likely to be in shadow, right? That side. And over here like this. So this is the little bit darker green than I have in here, which is a sap green. If you have watercolors and you know the names of them, then this is more like a sap green. Okay, and then let's do this right here like that. Now we've got our leaves have more than one color, right? Then you're starting to add some interest because, you know, sometimes people are like, oh, my paintings look so flat. And it's like, well, are you using the light, medium, and dark colors? And if you're using other mediums, like let's say you're using acrylic paint, it doesn't matter what order you put them in, right? Because you can layer layers on top without a problem. In watercolor, you have to think ahead a little bit more because you don't have the opportunity of, oh, if I want to add more light on top of there, it's not as easy. All right. So most of the time in watercolor, I'm thinking light to dark. In acrylics, I can paint in any order that I want. Um, okay. And I also want to add a darker green to create the little line in the middle. So let me, I have this nice, like dark green over here, right? Which is my, it looks like it's a cobalt green or something like that, or, chromium oxide green, it might be. But okay, so let's do this and put like this darker line in the center, right? Oh, that's fun. Okay. And then this is where you can define sort of the shape of the leaf too. Okay. There we go. Oh, nice. Nice. Fun. Aw, thank you, TKO's art. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you for the share over on Whatnot. Woot woot. All right. Those are cute. I like the blueberries. I'm satisfied with those so far. Um, let's finish up the gooseberries. So with the gooseberries, I need a little bit of brown, but if you look, there's no brown on my palette. So how am I going to get brown? All right, there are a couple of options. I have a little bit of red here, don't I? So if I add green and red are opposite each other on the color wheel, right? So let me find my color wheel here real quick. I have bunches of color wheels next to me, but let me find a good one for you. Let's see here. This is a different one. Come on now. Where are my standard color wheels? I remember a color wheel dropping not too long ago, like dropping on the floor. And I was like, oh, I need to remember to pick that up. But I think I didn't pick it up. Okay, let's just use this one, which is a watercolor color wheel, but that's okay. It will work. Let me open this up because my regular one, oh, you know what? My regular one's sitting right next to me right here. That's why I put some paper on top of it. Imagine that, right? In your studio. So with the color wheel, if you look here, if I take a red, so a red, and I add to it a green, right? Red and green are opposite each other on the color wheel. If I come over here to the green and I add a little bit of red, you see how I get something that looks like an olivey color? But we can make it more brown by adding just a little bit more red. So I only need a little bit for the tops of these. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this sort of mid tone green right here. And then I have a little bit of red right here, right? Let's see if I can get it to turn into a brown or not. Let's see here. More cranberry. It's not quite brown. It's still a little bit red. I don't know. Let's see. Can we add just a touch of phthalo blue, which is a mixing blue? Wow. It like overruns it, doesn't it? Let's add a little bit of this green right here. Okay, we're getting a darker color. All right, this is where I have to come to my spare palette over here that I was telling you about that has some of these other. There's an orange, a magenta, and a what looks like a naphthol red, something like that, or a cadmium red. So if I use this cadmium red and I put it in here, boom, now I'm getting closer to a brown, just like that. Okay, I knew I needed a little bit of red, and this red ran out really fast. But our objective, if you're just joining us, um, this evening, what I'm doing is what I call a dirty palette challenge. So my objective is to clean up my palette. I don't want to have palettes that have random bits of paint in them. When I go to sit down to do a painting session, I like to squeeze out fresh paint. So that means I need empty palettes to do that, right? and so this one has a bunch of green and blue in it with a little bit of yellow. And I'm wanting to go ahead and empty this palette. So that's why we're starting out with this one. And we're just going to put a little brown. Oh, yeah, that made me a nice brown. So when you mix your red and green, you can usually end up getting a nice kind of brownish going on. Okay, here we go. So these are the little gooseberries. Nice. Okay, that worked great. I'm wondering, can I use this brown somewhere else? We'll use it somewhere else a little bit. Okay, so there's the brown, right, on the gooseberries. And then there are blueberries. I think the blueberries turned out well, right? And if you're just joining us, what's in the center of the blueberries there that looks like black, it's actually not black. It's a super dark blue, which would be something like this looks like it's a Prussian blue right there. And so Prussian blue is a nice deep blue, especially for if you're going to do something like blueberries. All right, so that was using the blues and greens in here that I was thinking of. Um, for being able to use this up. Let's see what else we have. Thank you. Meow, yes. On Whatnot says adorable. Thank you. Let's see what else we have in here that we can use with those colors, right? Ooh, can we get a purple? Nah, we don't have much red. Okay, to get a purple going. Let's see. The red. Here's brown and green. Why don't we do a kiwi real quick then? Okay, let's do the kiwi. If you weren't here earlier, I was talking about if we're going to use up the paint that's in our old palettes, so for the dirty palette challenge, then this is one of the books that I highly recommend that you can just turn to just about any page. And this is Watercolor and Success in 4 Steps. Great, excellent beginner book if you want to give it as a gift to somebody with some brushes and some watercolors. And so you can just flip through here. Everything is just fabulous. Love it. Like I just saw that teapot. Maybe we'll do the teapot next. So let's do the kiwi real quick. And I'm not going to be able to leave it in the picture for you. So just imagine in your mind a kiwi, okay? I have the book off to the side for myself here. Let's see, I have to put something on it to keep it from flipping. There we go. Okay, so kiwi, delicious fruit, right? Ooh, I'm kind of on a fruit theme here, aren't I? So let's do now that we have a red, a brown, sorry. Let's do the outside of the kiwi. So it just sort of goes like this, right? And then it's going to come down, simple de dimple, like that. So we'll just put some brown in here for the back of the kiwi, yes. And then they sort of do a little bit of the bottom of the kiwi has that little bit of where the flower originally was, right? So we've got that part of the kiwi going, the brown. Okay, and then let's do the green because Lordy knows we have lots of green here. Let's start with the lighter green, and then we'll add the darker green, right? So we're going to imagine that it comes around like this and sort of like that, right? It has to be oval, oval. And in the center, you want kind of a clear area because what is lighter in the center, right? Normally. Okay, let's just do that. I know I don't have the proportions right, but I'm not worried. We're just having fun. And we're using up our paint. That's the objective. Let's use up the paint. Okay. So now what do I want to do? In the center right here, I'm going to put a little bit of yellow because the center of it usually is a lighter color. And it doesn't matter if there's some green left over on my brush, right? Because it's sort of a combo of a yellow and a green in that little center area right there. So let me bring it up. That's just the basics of it. Now, if it's too wet, like there's a wet area right here, I just take my paper towel and go dab and pick up some of the color, right? No fuss, no muss. We're just using up paint here and playing and discovering. And we might come up with something that we really like. Like from doing blueberries a bunch of times, I've fallen in love with painting blueberries. So sometimes you'll find blueberries on my greeting cards. You'll find blueberries on my artist trade cards because I just love painting blueberries. But I had to paint blueberries to discover that, right? All right, let's look. It's a little bit greener around the outside. So let's grab, ooh, which one? Which one? I could do this one, or I could do like this really funky one. Let's take the funky green color right here. This is a PG7, which different companies call it different names. Phthalo green, it can be called. The other color it can be called is emerald green. Sometimes you'll find it called. And it's a very synthetic looking green. And most of the time I mix it with other colors. Let's put some in here and mix it with a little bit of yellow, like this yellow right here. And so really phthalo green, PG7 is what it'll say on the tube is the pigment code, is excellent for mixing with yellows to get all different kinds. Like this is sort of a springy green, a light, like fresh grass kind of green, but it came from this really weird synthetic looking green. Yeah, that's amazing. Okay, so let's just sort of put this around the outside. Now what I'm going to do is I want it to sort of run into the middle. So I'm just going to get my brush wet and just using water on there, going around the edges, and that will help it to sort of merge into the center there. Nice. Now, while that's drying, I'm going to come back to this and add some little more dimension into that. So what do I want to do? Let me take a little bit of the PG7 I was talking about, the emerald, and I'm going to mix it in with a little bit of this red right here. Not enough. Okay, let's take some of the brown, mix that in there. Not enough. A little bit more. And then that way I can come in here. Let's see, how do they do that? They just sort of, I'm adding a little more water to my brush and just sort of brushing it in here with lots of water so that it will move around, right? It doesn't look that brown. We need to bring in a little more of this crazy red color. There we go. Yeah, that way it looks just a little bit more brown, right? but it has a sort of a mottled effect because I'm adding a lot of water to it. And so that's making the pigment move around. Okay, cool. I like where that's going. Let's put some darker color in the center here. So we need something that looks like little seeds, which would normally be black, but I don't have any black here. So how do you mix black? You can mix black by putting red, blue, and yellow together, right? And I don't have any red on here, so I'll pick up some red from my other palette, or maybe I'll use some magenta. Let's grab a little bit of magenta. So I'm gonna mix something that would be kind of like a black. Whoa, that magenta is crazy bright. That is a bright pink. And then I'm just gonna bring in some of this PG7, which is that crazy phthalo green, right? There we go. That's purple. Purple. Ooh, that's pretty. It's like a dark, dark, dark blue. And then if I add a little bit of this dark blue right here. Let's see. Okay, I'm getting something like a Prussian blue. Dang it. Okay, what do I need to add to Prussian blue? A yellow of some sort. So let's grab a little bit of this yellow right here. See what we got. Okay, that's like a dark, dark, dark green. This is what I do in my studio all the time, y'all. Is I'm just sitting here and I'm a mad mixologist. Okay, that's kind of green. The opposite of green is red. So let's pick up a little bit more of this cadmium red or um, pyrrole scarlet or something like that. Okay, I have brown again. Brown, but I want something darker than the brown. Let's put a little bit of the indigo in okay. All right, now we're close. It's not exactly black. I'll show you up here. Pretty close to black, not exactly black, but if you mix different combinations of your magenta, cyan, or your blue and excuse me, yellow, and there are all different kinds. There are cool yellows, there are warm yellows. So you just have to play around with whatever you have on your palette. And so I like to do color mixing to start the color mix with this magenta, but sometimes you just have to throw in some of this pyrrole red or this, what looks like a cadmium red right there. See, these are both, well, this is considered a violet and this is considered a red, but look, I got black. Yay. So pretty close to black. And I can use that now to put the little seeds in here, right? So let's just using the tip of my brush here. Be some seeds in there. Some of it is still wet down here, so I don't know what's going to happen, but we'll find out together. But it is, at least it'll look sort of like looks sort of like a kiwi. I think you'll know what it is when you look at it, right? Doo-doo-doo. Let's put a little bit more in there. It doesn't have to be like perfect. Okay. So if you looked at that, would you know it was a kiwi? I think so. Some of that green is not dry yet. So some of the black is just running right into it. But what? We're just playing. So that is a-okay. All right. Yay. I'm excited that I was able to mix a dark, dark, dark color very much like a black. All right, now I'm going to put like a little bit darker color right around the rim right there because I want to draw attention to the rim. So I'm using some of this reddish brown and that little bit of black that we just created to get a darker color and see if I can drop it along the edge here and bring a little more attention to the edge there. Let's assume there's like a little shadow going over here. Why not? Okay, well, that gives it a little bit of extra dimension for the heck of it. Okay, so that was our kiwi. Yay. That was fun. I like it. Let's see what else we have here. I'm trying to use up these greens and blues, right? I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it tonight. Oh, see the purple. The thing with the purple is you need some pink on there, which there used to be a magenta over here because I always need that for color mixing. Should we do it? Now I've got the magenta in here. The idea, like I said, is to use up, you know what, this one, there's so much paint in here. I know I'm not going to use it up tonight, but this one, and this is a dirty palette challenge. So this one has lesser amounts of paint. Again, you've got like 2 wells over here that are low enough that I can actually clean them and use them for color mixing, right? Let's do that real quick, like, yay. Okay. And there's some magenta in here. So let's just borrow some of that magenta from here because I'm trying to use it up. Let's borrow the magenta and just put some in here. It's not a lot. It's not a big blob. So it'll be very easy if I want to just dampen it and get it out of there. 'Cause I'm trying to clear up this beautiful 10 well, or how many wells is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 wells. Fabulous. I like this one a lot. Okay, just a little bit more of that magenta. There we go, like that. So I'm just picking it up with my brush and some water. Yeah, I want to try to clean this one off too. Let's see. So we have a little bit of a magenta. We can play with the magenta and the blue and make some purple. So we can do this. Oh, you love the palettes. I just fight with the lid. Okay, I'm just wondering which lid you're talking about um, when you talk about palettes. Because none of these that I have lids to them. I do have a big palette that has a bunch of mystery paint in it with a lid. But these all, oh, your watercolor tin. Okay. Okay. I got you. Fighting with the lid. Okay. So we have greens and we have blues. And now we've got some magenta. So we can make some like fabulous purples, right? So that violet I usually make with the blue, the cyan, and the magenta, right? So let's go ahead and do the eggplant. Woohoo! So I'm going to start with the green top. And so I'm going to use the light green, right? Because we're working with light green. Let's get a bunch on there. So I'm going to put the, hello. I'm just going to do it. It kind of goes like this, right? So that is the top. That's just the beginning of the top, right? We're going to end up adding more colors on top of it, like darkening some areas. And okay, there we go. So we have a top to the eggplant. See, I could draw this in with a pencil. It's super nice that in the, oh, authentic 1997 on YouTube says, I paint in oil paint. That is awesome. I love oil paint. You know what my favorite oil paint is, authentic, over on YouTube? I use the R&F oil paint sticks and the new smaller paint sticks that they have, the drawing sticks. Oh my gosh, that's my favorite way to paint with oils. Not that I can't paint with a brush, but my favorite way is to hold it like a crayon and really mash it in there. And I just have so much fun with that. What I was saying about this book, The Watercolor Success in 4 Steps, is the way they do give you the design here. So if you wanted to, if you were, as I said, gifting this to somebody who's starting out with watercolor, it's very clear what the design is, and they can use a pencil and draw it if they want to. Okay. Of course, I don't have a need to do that because I've been painting for a long time. So I am just, plus we're playing. So I'm just going to wing it, right? I'm going to start out with, for the under, I'm going to start out with a light blue just because, right? You don't have to start out with purple and more purple and more purple. I'm just going to start out with a light version of blue. Actually, ooh, there's this really pretty, There are two blues here in this palette that I'm trying to use up. This is like a turquoisey blue, and this is a, what is that one called? Like a manganese blue. So I've got some fun blues in here. Looks like I mixed up a little bit of purple at one point, right? So we're just using up whatever's here a little bit like that, and take a little bit of that. Okay, let's do that. And let me just put the shape. I know it's blue, but that's okay. It's going to be a little bit bigger down here, right? It's going to come down and maybe go sort of like that. No, it needs to be a little bit bigger on the bottom here. There. So this is just putting in a base color. I could have done the base color red. It doesn't matter, right? Except that I have a lot of blues and greens here that I'm trying to use up. Okay. Let's see. I just added water to my brush so I can sort of come in here and reactivate some of that. Ooh, it's granulating. That's awesome. So if you're not familiar with granulation, can you see how it's an uneven surface there with lots of water? So that's a watercolor paint that granulates. I love when paint granulates. That's awesome. All right. Let's see. Now I've got the magenta and I've got the blue. So let me take those. You know what I'm going to do? To make it easier for you to see is I'm going to turn it this way so it's upside down. It's okay. If you know what you're painting, it doesn't matter that it's upside down. And as a matter of fact, a lot of people paint upside down, right? They'll draw a grid or they'll draw their image out and then they'll flip it upside down. And that way your brain doesn't get stuck on it has to look a certain way. Oh, Authentic said purple is tricky to mix. Ooh, you like Old Holland. Nice, Authentic says on YouTube. Well, I use the Old Holland watercolors, which are super pigmented. They're beautiful. And they have this really cool color called Baroque something orange or Baroque red, and it's awesome. That's like a unique color to them. And purple is tricky to mix. Well, I find that if you're using cyan or you're using a dark color like this, the dark blue with the magenta, PV19. So this is pigment violet 19. I get really nice purple mixes that way. So let's do that. This was that little bit of brown that I had mixed. Let's use this brown. I want to clear that out and make some purple in there. So I'm going to put a little bit of the brown on here while I have it on my brush, right? I'm going to put it on a little bit on the stem and maybe a little bit, sort of give that a little bit of dimension, right? And then now that it's wet, I can just wipe this out of here. Good, good, good. Yay. I like that. Let's see if we can mix up some purple. So I stopped using colors in 2019. Everything I paint is monochromatic gray. That's very interesting, Authentic. I like that. So they're painting with grays. So black, I would imagine black is in there as well as your darkest gray. And awesome. Do you get the burnt umber, ultramarine blue, titanium white? Perfect. Perfect. Beautiful. Yeah. Very nice combination. A lot of times instead of well, I usually do sienna and indigo for my combination. But of course, it depends on the brand, right? Authentic. It depends on what brand the paint is, which ones work the best to give you your result. But yeah, that's a great combination, burnt umber and ultramarine blue. So let's go with the cyan here, which who knows what brand or color they call it, but that's what it is. This is phthalo blue right there. So I've got a phthalo blue, which would be a PB15, probably PB15:3, the green shade. And then let's do some of the magenta. See, right there. Okay, gorgeous purple, just like that. Bam. One of the classes I'm teaching at the Herrick Center in Bradenton, Florida, near Sarasota, this fall is color theory and how to mix your colors. So if you know what the base colors are, how quick it is to mix your colors. Yes, Authentic says indigo is ultramarine blue and brown. There are so many different blends of indigo, right? Oh, that like I say, that's why I said you have to try the different brands and do the mixes until you stumble upon the mix that you really like, because they're all so different depending on the brand and their how they mix it. So here we've got a great mid-tone purple, just like that, using the magenta and the cyan. So let's go ahead, and this is sort of my mid-tone purple. So let's just start putting some of this in here. Bloop, like that. Oop, I put some over the green, but I don't care because we're trying to use up paint, right? And we're just experimenting, and that's how you discover things. Color combinations, brushes, that kind of stuff you can experiment with your doing these kind of projects. Okay, let's see here. Nice. Now I've got a lot of darkness up along the top there, and I really want more darkness along the bottom. So I'm actually going to mix a little bit of this dark blue, which I think is Prussian blue, in with it. Ah, it was too much. Too much. The Prussian blue overtook it. And then, so I'm going to have to grab a little bit more of the magenta here. Ooh, there's a nice dark blue right there. Okay. Just with what I had on my brush here of the blue. So let's drop some of that in there toward the bottom, because if it's touching a table, and of course this is opposite for me because I'm looking at it, but keeping in mind, bearing in mind, this is sort of the table down here that it would be sitting on. So I'm dropping the dark in there. Let's put some dark in this area here too, to sort of give you an idea of the shape, right? Okay, let's get in there. And then I'm going to go with a little bit more green. Let's take some of the sap green here. So it's a little bit darker green. It's going to be darker where it sort of where it touches the, right? Eee. Okay, I'm just playing. Let's just throw some in there and not worry too much about it. Like, where's my light source and all that? There we go. Okay. Ooh, I like how the purple is granulating. I'll bring it up closer. Let me turn it around. Bring it up closer. You see the granulation in here because there's a lot of water and there's a granulating paint. So one of the paint colors that I was messing around with there has the effect of granulating. Let me see. What else did I? Ooh, they went in with some really dark here. So I don't like the top, but remember I was doing it upside down, right? Do I have cadmium yellow? I think this one right here is close to a cadmium yellow. It's not as rich as a cadmium yellow. Let me see if this one is a cadmium. Nope, this one's too light. That one right there is too light as well. Um, see, I have these, it's a palette challenge. So I have all these palettes, right? Let's see, that's more like an Aerialin. This is probably closer to a cadmium yellow right here. It's a little bit dirty though. You can see because I had so many greens in there, but that's closer to a cadmium yellow medium. And all right. Actually, one of the combinations that I like to do to get skin tones is I like to mix my yellow with purple. So I have purple right here, right? Let's just take a little bit of this yellow that looks like a mid-tone yellow, and add it in there. And now I start to get browns of different kinds, right? So here's the color that I got out of it. Ooh, that's kind of a greeny brown. You see there how it's kind of a brown? So I play around with my purples and yellows in order to get various types of browns and skin tones. But now that we have it, I can bring it over here. It's kind of an olivey color. So let me just drop it in here just to give a little bit of extra dimension to that green right over top of it. For the fun of it, because I'm not liking how the top is coming out, but that's okay. Now, as this is drying, because it was very wet, you can see that this becomes just a whole mass of color. So let's get some darker. I need some darker purple. So what am I going to do? I'm going to grab the magenta again, put it in with that dark blue. Ooh, that's a red purple. Purples can lean, well, dioxazine purple is a nice dark um, purple. Is dioxazine purple a single pigment? I don't remember whether it's single pigment or it has multiple pigments, but dioxazine purple is a very dark purple that usually leans a little more blue. And then you can also buy so violet blue versus violet red, meaning they lean one way or the other. What I just mixed is leaning more toward the violet red because of the magenta I put in it. And now let's add some of that dark blue that I have right here and see what happens. Okay, good. It's somewhat dark. Now, if I want to darken it, Diox purple is expensive. Yes, it is. Authentic said over on YouTube. Let's grab some of this dark color that I made. There we go. So that is now a much darker purple. And let's go ahead and drop it in. Just the fact you can use the same color, but the more layers that you build up, that will also help to get you um, some dimension. But right now, I just added some of that dark color so that I can come in here with what looks like a little bit darker purple. Okay, let's just do this. It's okay to have brush marks in your painting. Some people, like I know, especially with oil painters, right? Oftentimes with oil painters, uh, they like to have a very smooth surface. And I'm very much a texture person. I like to see the brush strokes and the texture instead. So even when I oil paint, that's why I like using the oil paint sticks. Hey, Evie Eden over on YouTube, welcome in. Said hello, and I like the paint sticks in oil paint because they help you to see texture. Um, and the same is true. I like to get texture in my watercolor paintings too. So here I'm doing it on its side and kind of dry brushing it a little bit to get some extra texture in there. So that was the dark purple that I mixed there with the dark color we mixed earlier and the dark blue here and some of the magenta. Okay, so I'm satisfied with the eggplant right now. Let's see what else we can do that's in this sort of green and blue. Oh, I know. There is a whale in here. I think it's in this one. Let me see. Whale, whale, whale. Are they going to tell us where okay, landscapes. This book is 15-minute watercolor. So I think that there was a whale in here. Let me, um, ooh, that is pretty, right? Except I don't really have a black. So let's just skip over that one. See, there's the whale. Okay, cool. So let's get the whale here. Come on, whale. There you are. Okay, they say whale galaxy, which they do spatter with white, which I don't know if I have white handy. We'll see. It's magenta, dark blue, ultramarine blue. And then they mix the dark blue and they get, I don't know, with the dark blue. Okay, there's the whale shape. So that's what we're going to do. We're just going to do a whale shape right here on the page with some water. They start out with water. So if I'm going to do the whale shape, I'm going to use this, what's called a wash brush. So the wash brush, oh, let's see. Evie Eden says on YouTube, I have recently started gouache, and that is great for texture. Yes. Evie, I love, 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 love gouache. Actually, some of my lives are about gouache, so feel free to go back on my YouTube channel under the live tab. When you're on my channel, you'll be able to see all different kinds of free classes that I've taught and lives. And some of them are about gouache. As a matter of fact, I think 2 weeks ago, I did gouache jellyfish. So feel free to, and I've done both traditional gouache and um, uh, acrylic gouache. So if you're interested in that, if you are learning gouache, then help yourself to those classes. Okay, so just water on my brush here. You're trying to love gouache, but it is different from watercolor. Yes. Yeah. And she says she's glad she started watercolor first. Yep. Okay, so what we need to do is wet the area where the whale is going to be. So they give you a kind of a sketch of what the whale should look like. So what I'm doing is I'm just creating an outline with water, and then I'm going to drop some color into it. Okay. So let's just do a tail right here. Now it's a little bit gray because the water's getting dirty, which is fine. Okay, so here's part of the tail there. And then we've got I'm just looking at the picture to see the whale. Add a little more water. So the idea is to have a nice wet area here. And we'll bring it along here. Oops. We'll bring it up along here. Okay, so that's the body of the whale right there. And I want it wet because we're gonna dunk some paint on there using a wet and wet technique. And then we've got one of their fins coming down here, and then another of the fins coming out here, and just water. But my water is dirty, so I'm going to bring it up closer so you can see that it has kind of a gray look to it. So that is the outline of the whale. And then let's just grab some of the lighter blue here, the phthalo blue, and we're just going to drop it in. And the idea, oh, you're welcome. Evie said that she'll take a look at the my prior classes. That's great. Yeah, I like to save these lives that I do on Sundays. So I have over a year's worth of free art classes. So there, I'm dropping in some color. Let's drop in a little bit darker color as well. So we have some lighter, we have some darker. And the nice thing is you can just let it move around on its own. There we go. So that's a little bit darker down here. Ooh, see, I've almost used up all the dark color on here. Yay. Let's see. Right. So just something like that. Now, what I noticed is that the center of it is a little bit clear. So I'm just going to go back in with a um, clean paper towel. And while it's still wet, you can pick up a little bit of the color. Yay, Evie said she's already subscribed to me on YouTube. So I appreciate that. Thank you so much. There we go. So I'm just lifting a little bit of it with my paper towel, just because it's showing that in the picture that there's some lightness or whiteness. Ooh, and they show a little bit of purple in there too. So let's see, I have some purple left over here. Let's grab some. What they're doing is creating kind of a galaxy within the shape of a whale. So yay, I have a little bit of purple. Let's drop a little bit of purple in here while it's still wet. So it's like spreading all over the place. That's fun. Just sort of putting it a little bit in there. All right, a little bit more purple. Come here, purple. While it's still wet, just to sort of give it that variation. Fun. Okay, there we go. Put some blue, put some purple. Let it sort of run around and let's see. So this first step, we're doing wet on wet, meaning we're putting the colors on that wet shape that we created of the whale. Let me bring it up a little closer so you can see it a little bit better. Right there. Okay, and then we have to let it spread a little bit. And then, oops, let's see, I missed the pages. If you weren't here earlier, it's the 15-minute watercolor masterpieces from Anna Kolodyac, it looks like. And she has some fun stuff in here. So then, ooh, look, she adds a little bit of what look like waves down here. And then she's using some darker colors. So I'm actually going to come in with a pen to do the darker colors for the heck of it. But I do need to add a little bit of water down below there. So again, with the brush and a little bit of my, yay, let's use up some more of the blue. Awesome. Look at that. Good, good, good. Need to use up these colors. So I'm just going to put a little bit of wave action underneath here. Right. Just using the blue that I have in my palette to create some waves there around my around it. It's an excuse to use up the paint, right? That is the idea. I'm hoping to have this whole thing emptied by the end of this session so that I can have another clean palette. Woo! All right. So the pen, I'm going to bring it up a little closer to you in just a minute, but I have jars of pens like this next to me on my desk. And so I've got, this is a dark blue micron pen with archival ink. That's what's important to me when I'm painting, not when I'm doing testing like this, but for my finished artwork, it says archival pen. And to me, that's really important. So this is the Sakura is the name of the company, Sakura, Japanese. Pigma, Pigma micron pens. And they have different nib sizes that they show you on the top here. So this one is a dark, 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 dark blue. Let's just do it over here. That's kind of fun. So I can do it in a dark, I can add the features to the whale in the dark blue, or of course there's always black. So I have, let's see what this says. It's a pen nib. What kind of nib is that? Oh, that's an interesting little nib. They call it PN. Let me see if I do it here. Oh, that's a nice nib also. Let me just use it over here to like draw in the edge over here. Give a little more interest to the edge of that. Woo. Okay, cool. That's working well. I think I'll try the dark blue. So you can tell by the end here what color it is. You see there's a light blue one right there. And then this is the black. So it's on camera, you might not be able to see the difference between the dark blue and the black. But when I scribble it out here, I can see a difference in it. So let me grab the dark blue one right there. And next to my table, I have just tons of different mostly Japanese pens to play with. Okay, so let's look at here on, she shows you like to draw the line of the mouth here, the eye, kind of give a little bit of shadow underneath there, a little bit of definition to the tail right here. Okay, so that's what we're going to start with. Is this is mostly dry over here, so I can come in with my pen and I'm just gonna, this was the size 0.5. Let's bring this down here like this, and then back up like that. And then we're going to put the eye. And what I'm going to do when I do the eye is I'm going to leave the little white spot to give the eye sort of some personality. See the personality in there? Now, if the blue underneath it is just messing that up, then I can come back in with some white. I'll show you my favorite white in just a minute for doing that. Okay, so this is still kind of wet down here. Let's see if I can use, yeah, it's okay. It's kind of working. The problem with trying to use your pen when it's wet is the wetness will wick the paint away from the nib, and then it can take a little while before the paint starts flowing again there. Okay. Let's just do this. Yeah, it doesn't want to work too well there. Let's just bring this along here. Yeet. Yep. It doesn't want to come out because of the wetness right there, because I'm hurrying along instead of waiting. Okay, let's bring this up this way just a little bit. Still kind of wet, so it's having trouble depositing the paint from the pen. And then there's a little bit down here. Yeah, it just, look, it's having a hard time. So let me use a different kind of pen because it's a little too wet still. Let me see. I've got these really cool Japanese pens. This pen, Japanese pen by Zebra, the name of the company is Zebra, is cool because you have a fine line on one end here, and then you have a larger tip on this end. Isn't that fun? And then they just snap together like that. So let's go ahead and do this in black. A little bit more sort of definition around here. Just sort of get that like that. So I'm just doing it a little more true to what she has in her picture in terms of using the pen and giving myself a little more of an outline here. There we go. That's fun. Okay, let's see. And then as far as the tail goes, she kind of brings it like this. So it looks like this comes over here. There's a little ridge, kind of a ridgeback, isn't that? Is there a whale called a ridgeback, I think, right? Something like that. Okay, well, let's just sort of have some fun with that. Put some lines on there. All right, just give it a little bit of extra zhuzh right there. This pen works a little bit better on the wetness. So let me bring it up so you can see sort of it's beginning to grab some personality there. Now the mouth, I think I want to do just a little bit more, a little thicker, because the first pen I used that was the 05 was a little bit thinner. There. Okay, that's better. Nice. Now, the idea in this particular book is that she wants you to create sort of a galaxy effect in the fish. So um, she does some spatter, and she's using white gouache, but I don't have my white gouache here. Oh, you know what? I might have some white gouache here. I do. This is my one of my I just happen to have it next to me. This is a Pebeo gouache. I love this. The Studio gouache is a great, inexpensive one. Hey, Sunshine Crafty Maine. Marie, welcome in on Whatnot. We think it's a humpback. Okay. Watercolor, et cetera, et cetera. So this is the Pebeo brand. I've worked with the Pebeo brand for many years. They are based in France, and then they have an office in Canada that services North America. And these studio gouache are beautiful. I love them, and they're very reasonably priced for a starter set. Amazing. I mean, I use them for all different kinds of gouache paintings, along with other brands like Winsor& Newton and Holbein. But those other ones are frightfully expensive. And I find, especially if you want to play around with gouache, and what is gouache? Gouache is an opaque watercolor. Okay. And so, what she was saying in her book is to use some white gouache to create those little spots, right? So I have a white gouache and a black gouache. She was saying to do her little galaxy. So let's take, I'm not going to take much because we're almost clean here, right? And I don't want to put too much in there to where I won't be able to easily clean it, because that's the objective. This is the dirty palette challenge and we're trying to get this cleaned up, right? So I've got the black gouache, and then here I'm going to put a little bit of the white gouache right here. Oop, come on, you can do it. There we go. Okay, so, and because this traditional gouache, like this Pebeo Studio gouache or the Winsor Newton designer gouache or the Holbein gouache, Gouache, they are water soluble. So you can put these over any of your watercolor paintings. So you can start your watercolor painting with the regular transparent watercolors and then build more texture on top with the opaque gouache paints as well, unless you want to just do the gouache by itself. Either way. So I want to do some flicking of the black and the white here. So what do I need to do to flick? I'm looking for my old paintbrush, old toothbrush. Is it here? Come on, old toothbrush. Oh my gosh. There we go. I was going to say I have several. So there's one. Here's another. Oops. Here's another one. Right? Yeah. So don't throw away your old toothbrushes. Right? The happy squish. Welcome in over on Whatnot. Save your toothbrushes because this is the perfect time to use them to do spatter. Okay. So I'm just going to drop my brush into some fresh water. I'm going to start with the white, of course, and then move to the black. So here we go with some of the white. Get some white on there. Make sure my toothbrush is nice and juicy. And then I usually just use my finger, but you can, like, remember I said earlier, these Princeton Velvet Touch have the wash brushes like this, have this beautiful plastic handle. It's perfect for doing this. Instead of getting your fingernails all dirty, you can hold this and use this to do it with. Let's see what direction I need to go in. Okay, it's not coming out as big as I want. You want to paint a midnight sky and a moon and spatter some stars. Yeah, you see, it's going to work better with my finger. It's just the way it is. Yee. There we go. So that's giving me, with my toothbrush, it's giving me some small spatter. I'm going to bring it up close so you can see. So there's some small spatter right there. If I want bigger spatter, then I actually use a paintbrush. So let me see which paintbrush I want to use for that. I'll just try this wash brush right here, and I'll get some of the white on it. And then this is where I do your typical spatter. Yeah, this gives me a little bit bigger white spots like that. So I'm using one brush and just spattering like this. There we go. It came out a little bit gray, but whatever, we're playing. This is the time to experiment, right? uh, so let's just, some of it came out in large. Okay, so that gave me a little bit bigger spatter. Let's try the black. So with the black, I'm going to again do this brush. It seemed to come out better with this than my toothbrush. So let's get a bunch of black on there. Make sure it's nice and juicy wet. Okay, let's see what happens. Oh yeah, there we go. So we've got, I always have to move it around so I can get some different angles to have it come off. Okay, there we go. So now we've got some black spots on there as well. And then let's see, what does she say? Oh, and then what she does in the book is she comes back in with the little brush. So I'm just putting some water on my little brush, and I'm going to make some of these black ones into little like sparkles. So I'm drawing it down here and up here and like this to create like little sparkles. There's one. If it's not black enough, I can just pick up more black here. And then, okay, so let's just do one from scratch. Go like that and like that. And then fill it in a little bit. There we go. So I'm just creating a couple of sparkles with my small brush here, right? If I had a color in the background, then like black, say, then those white spots would show up really nicely. And you could do the same thing. You could just using the white, you could create little, like little what look like little stars. There we go, like that. There we are. Now there's a really cool this white from Copic. Do you see where it says opaque white? The cool thing about this is a white. Oh, thank you, watercolor, etc. Said, I love that whale. So you can use this as white, and you see how it has this little tiny tip to it on it. It's almost like you were going to put on eyeliner, right? And so I like this. This is an opaque white. Actually, let me shake it again because I need to be sure that the opaque gets all in there. Let's see. Okay, opaque. So it's called the Copic Opaque White, and it has this little applicator in it. And I love the applicator for the detail. But what you have to be careful of with the applicator is, I don't know if you can see that or not, but there's a big old drip on the end because it drips a lot. So you just have to be careful when you're using it to rub the edge a lot on the edge of your bottle. Okay. So right over top of the blue here, I can come in with this and I can make my little star things. I'll show you in just a second. Ah, you're going to love it. This is so cool. Okay, let's do it like right here, maybe. Right there. And sort of fill it in a little bit here. There's a little drip trying to come down. So just watch for the drips here with this one. Okay. I want to make this one a little bit bigger. So I'll just draw it out a little bit more like that. There we go. All right. And I could do more, but I don't want to bore you. So let me just bring it up so you can see. You see the little white ones? Oh my gosh, they're so cute. So imagine if you had a dark, like a black background, and you made this just a light blue and maybe a little bit of magenta or a little bit of purple on it with that dark background. Heck, you could even, no, you couldn't do it on black paper. That's true, because the black would not let the white show through. But then you could come back. Oh, thank you, Meow. Yes, said fabulous. It's fabulous over on Whatnot. Thank you. So, yeah, if you had a dark around it, you could come back on with this little Copic opaque white and make all these really cute little stars. So fun, right? Okay, well, that was a fun one out of that book. But do you see why I say that this book right here is a little more advanced than the first one that I showed you? So this is the 15-minute watercolor masterpieces by Anna Kaleidik, and I will have a you're never boring watercolor, etc. said on YouTube. Thank you. um, but this one is like, I wouldn't say for the beginner, a little bit like somebody who's dabbled in watercolor. This is a good one for doing these quickie little projects. But if you are an all the way beginner, then this one, Watercolor Success in 4 Steps by Marina Bakasova, is more your speed for the beginner. Um, well, it's a great gift, right? All right, I have a little bit more paper over here. So what else can we put over there? Yeah, that was fun. That was fun. I like that. I like that. Not my not my greatest result for the first time, but it's heading in the right direction, right? That's the idea. You have to start somewhere. And normally before I'll do it on an actual piece of artwork, this is what I do. I just sit here and play around until I get a feel for what it is that I'm looking for. All right. So what are we going to do next? We've got more um, blue and green here. So let's just flip through this one. Hmm, let's see here. Ooh, this looks like it's lavender. Yeah, lavender. But I have some purple there. I'm trying to use up this blue and not just the green, right? Well, what the heck? Let's put some blue in with the lavender as well. All right. You know what? I'm going to switch out this paper because the only space I have left is way down here. So I'll do that another time on my own there. So I want to use this watercolor block from Famui that I was telling you about. So this happens to be 100% cotton paper. So a lot of artists like to work on 100% cotton paper when they're doing artwork for finished artwork. But I'm going to show you just how I use it. The nice thing is, and you can see here, we've been using a bunch of water on here and we've got a little bit. Do you see how the paper is curving just a little bit on the edge right there from having lots of water right here? And there's just a little bit of a ripple here. And so that's normal for the paper that's not in a block like that. But this one's in a block. So the nice thing about the block is it will hold the paper more flat for you. Okay. Um, I'm going to change out my water because it's getting quite dirty. So my sink is all the way on the other side of the house. So what I do is I just keep a container like yogurt. This is some Lebney cheese product here so that I can pour it out and then I have more water underneath here to replace it with. So let's just clean this and then you won't have to wait for me to go to my sink, right? Okay, here we go. And let's put that away right there. This right here. And then some fresh water. Yay. Right, awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Let's just set that aside. Yay. All right, so this is the watercolor black. And I love working on the watercolor blocks just because it's so much better for as I'm painting, I don't have to worry about the paper doing a lot of bending and making the paint all pool in one area, which is why I like to use the blocks. But the thing is, you have to kind of finish your painting before you can get to the next sheet of paper. And I don't know about you, I'm kind of art ADD and I'm constantly jumping from one project to the next, to the next, to the next. And so sometimes it frustrates me to have to finish whatever's on here before I can get to the next page. I know it's ridiculous, but I know there are others out there like me. Yes, I did. Okay, so we're going to do this. This is the watercolor success in 4 steps. And here is some lavender. Super simple, right? Very simple. So we're going to do this one just to use up some of the paint. And I know I have the purple here. I'm going to get some more of the magenta from this one. Why don't I try using the wash brush? Sometimes I like to switch it up and instead of using round brushes, I like to use these flat brushes. Love using the flat brushes. So we've got our purpley purple there. Let me clear this one out with that kind of yellowy brown here. Because there's not, because I had some magenta in there before, right? Let's put some more magenta in there, or just use, let's see, we'll use this one a little bit. See, trying to use it up, right? Okay, there's some magenta. And then here is the cyan again, but I want it to be more red. I want this one to be more red and that one to be more blue, right? Because your violets can lean red or lean blue. So here, we're gonna do a violet that leans red. And instead of doing the brush this way, where I get this straight line across the top, I'm holding it this way so I can sort of get these bits of the plant here like this, right? Add a little more water because this is a little bit dark over there. Just trying to create a bouquet of lavender. Okay, cool. When I visit my brother-in-law over in France, they live just outside Nice. And oh my gosh, the air, y'all, smells like lavender as you're driving up the mountain to get near them. And then their house has a massive hedge that is rosemary, massive hedge when you drive in their driveway. So you're smelling lavender and rosemary when I go to visit my brother in law in France. It's awesome. The air just is beautiful. Okay, so this is a redder version of violet. All right. I'm going to drop a little bit of the bluer version of violet, just a little bit in here right now, just to sort of give it a little extra dimension. But we'll come back and we'll add more dark once it's dry. Okay. And another reason why I like using this is for leaves, right? Because of the shape. So let's do some light first, right? Usually with watercolor, I start with the light. And so I'm just going to do some leaves from here, like this on its side again. So I'm using this on its side. Let's go up in here, just like that. You can do really fast grasses and things using using your flat instead of trying to do it with your round. Let's do this up here and a little bit more like that. Oops, a little bit, getting a little bit light from the water. Okay, there we go. Nice. I like where it's going. Okay. Now I'm going to come in and drop a little bit more of that dark. So I'm actually going to put some blue, some of that phthalo blue on my brush, and then bring it in with the purple. And so now I'm getting a purple that has much more of a blue leaning, right? So down here, down in here, I'm turning it like this. I'm using the edge of it as well as the long part in order to be able to sort of dabbing in some of that bluer purple, which is a darker. Okay. Bring it out this way just to give it a little bit more interest there, right? Okay. This mass in the middle kind of needs a little bit more time to dry because right now, as I'm dropping the dark in there, it's just sort of mixing in with the colors that are already there. And I want to add these little dots with the corner of my brush to sort of define the lavender just a little bit more. Could I do this with a round brush? Yeah, I could. But it wouldn't be quite as exciting because doing it with the flat brush is a little more challenging, right? We have to challenge ourselves. There we go. So I just have to wait for the middle right there to dry off a little bit more in order to be able to come in with that corner and add a little more dimension. Let's do this. Just lift a little bit of it with my, there, that's nice. So that will dry just a little bit faster. And then I can come back in and add my little bits. It's still kind of damp. It is still trying to make everything mush together. It's all right. We're just practicing, right? We're just playing. There we go. Looks okay. I like it. So we've got this lighter green. So now we're going to come in with some darker green, right? So this is that was usually it's called like a permanent green #1 or just permanent green light. Now what I'm grabbing right now is the sap green. So the sap green is going to be more toward the inside here, right? That's where it should be a little bit darker toward the middle. There we go. Just to give it that little bit of extra dimension. So we started with the light and now we're going in with the dark. All right, let me bring it up so you can kind of see a little closer like that. Nice. All right. And then here's our super dark, right? Let's just grab our super dark and see. I'm so glad the super dark is almost all used up. Yay, that's the idea. Okay. So let's put some of the super dark right here, right next to what would be underneath there, right? So you can see it sort of come through in little places. Ah, no, it's too symmetrical. I hate that. I like when things look a little more organic, and this is. But my analytical mind wants to make it more uh, symmetrical. I'm always fighting with the right brain and the left brain, right? Trying to uh, loosen up when I'm painting, which is what is that? A little more right brain or whatever. The less analytical, the more creative side. And then oftentimes the other side will start to come in and be like, no, it needs to be like this or like that and more precise. And I'm like, no, stop. Okay, well, we've got our 3 greens in there and we've got some of the purple going. Um, right now, to me, it looks like a little bit more like that lavender is a little too concentrated in the middle there. So let's grab our brush. I've got the red, right? The redder purple right here. So there's a little bit more of the magenta in it. And I'm going to go ahead and add some more sort of out this way. Why not? And bring it up in here. Just so that it's a little bit more random. And then I'm going to bring some of it over here. Kind of using the top and the, okay. Now it's beginning to look a little more random to me. Let's do this right here. Yay. Just do that. Now it's looking a little more spriggy, right? A little more sprigs coming off of it, like that. Okay. And let's see, maybe I can just add a little bit more up in here to make it look, bring those sprigs in there. Because now that the rest of it is dry, I can add a little more texture into the body of it. Okay. Ooh, that's fun. All right. I like where that's going. And now I'm going to use the corner of this with the darker. Let's add just a tiny bit of blue and with that purple. So we've got a dark purple, a more blue purple, what they call blue violet or violet blue, depending on the manufacturer. Okay, so now I've got the darker color on here and let's just drop in a little bit more of the darker color using sort of the edge of that brush right there. Okay, cool. It just gives it a little bit of extra zhuzh, extra interest, right? To our lavender here. Okay, cool. A little bit more over here. Ooh, I like where it's going. I like it. I like it. Now I want to go buy a lavender plant or get a bouquet of flowers with a sprig of lavender, right? Okay, there you go. I think that saved it. That made it look a little more like a spray. You like the spriggy look too? Yeah, watercolor, etc. said over on YouTube. Yeah, yeah, me too. I like the spriggy look. Okay, well, that makes me much happier. I like the look of that a lot better. And I used up some of this green, some of this green, some of this green. So you can see this is almost used up, but what? There's some yellow in there. Let's see what we can do with that yellow. Okay, let's use up some of the green and yellow. Ooh, okay, okay. Here we've got a something that looks sort of like a daisy, right? And we've got a little bit of gray on there, so we can do like the daisy petals. So let's try this one because it uses a little bit of yellow there. Okay, so this is another kind of flower, sort of a daisy, but I'm not going to do the daisy with this flat. I'm going to need the round for that. You know what? This is the size 6 round. Maybe I'll go with a little bit bigger round. I think this is the size 8. Yes. Okay, because it's a daisy. So we're going to put some yellow in the middle here, right? And so let me bring this over this way. And it has this right here. So almost like the cone flower, but not quite. Okay, let's just do that. And then it has just a little bit of brown on it. I used up all my brown. Okay, how am I going to get some more brown? Let's take a little bit of this. I have the little bit of this blue green. So let's grab a little bit of this red again and put it in there and see if we can get a brown. Not quite yet. So, a lot of red, but you know what? I have a lot of green here. So let's grab some more green. And see what we got. Okay, now we have a brown, right? Opposite on the color wheel. So yellow and purple or green and red will help you to get browns. Okay, so I have a little bit of brown here, and they show like a little bit of brown toward the top, and then just some brown dots around the bottom here. There, just to give it a little bit of dimension. So I'll bring that up. It's still kind of wet, so everything is dissolving. That's all right. When I'm not teaching live, I spend time in between the layers to let layers dry if I want to have a more if I want to have marks that are a little more that are not diffused, that are more where I put them. Like these marks are diffusing all over the place, but that's okay. Let's see. I want something that's a little warmer brown. Let's see if I add a little bit of yellow in with this. Yes, then I get a little bit warmer brown. So let's just put a little bit more in there, right there. Just adding a little bit more in. That's fine. Whatever. It's all right. Now for the petals, they they are they want it to be a white daisy. And so, you know, how the heck do we paint white? Well, we can paint white using blues. We can paint white using grays along here. Okay. So I have some gray here and I have a little bit of blue, like just a hint, right? Of blue. So you can do it with a hint of like snow. I like to do with a hint of blue usually. So I've got plenty of water on my brush and I'm just doing like there's a hint of a petal here, and a hint of a petal here, and then a hint of a petal here. Okay. So I'm just adding little hints of color just to sort of give me a reference of where I am and what I'm doing here. I'll bring it up closer so you can see in just a minute. There we go. So this is just a hint of blue. A hint, a hinty, hinty, hint. There we go. A little bit more here. Like that. I may want it to just fan out just a little bit more. Like just come out here just a little bit more. Okay. I know it might be hard to see, but I will bring it up to you in just a minute so you can see it better. I can see it. Like I said, I'm just giving myself a hint of color. Okay. Like that. This one maybe comes down just a little bit more like that. Okay. If I want it to come out a little bit more, I can take another one here and maybe just make this one a little bit come up just a little higher. Okay. So do you see the blue, the super light blue? Now I'm going to come in and define it a little bit more with the gray. So I've got my gray here that I mixed earlier. So it needs to really be more gray up near the center of the flower, right? Like that. And then just sort of trace down, like where would your shadows be on your petals? Let's get a little bit more. So white doesn't have to be white. It can be this light blue or sort of grayish, all right, just to sort of delineate the difference there. This is going to be gray in here, a little bit darker gray in this area, and a little bit gray in this area right here. I'm not doing it very carefully right now, but I'm just getting a feel for it. There we go. A little tiny bit more gray in this area right here. This is not quite dry yet, but that's okay. I'll just drip some right in there. And then this last one right here. So I'm sort of bringing the gray in where you would have a shadow, right? There you go. So we've got sort of grays and blacks. Huh. For some reason, my iPad it's charging, but it's losing charge at the same time that it's charging. I hate when that happens. There we go. Okay, well, we'll see what happens. So now we've got the hint with some super light blue and super light gray of white petals, as it were. And then I know a lot of times people will come in with this super light gray and they'll sort of go around the petals and leave the middle white so that you get the feel of the whiteness of the petal. But I usually will put like a super pale blue in there for the white instead. All right, let's do a stem. Plus, there's a tiny bit of green toward the center. So let's just grab a little bit of green and we'll just drop a little bit of green in here. This is some of the light green, right? Like that. Just to go around it so that you get the feel that it's going around like this. And then let's use a little bit. I'm going to mix the lighter and the dark and the sap green together because I want to get a green that will look good for the stem. I don't want it to be too dark like the sap green. Okay, so you know that the stem is going to be coming somewhere in this area right here. Okay. Yay. And I'm going to lift some of that because it's going to be darker just underneath where the petals are and lighter as it goes down, right? Okay. So that is the, mine doesn't look like hers, but it's the idea of it, right? It's the practicing the idea of it. Where are the flowers? Here they are. There are just so many flowers in here. It's beautiful. Lots and lots of fun ones. Ooh, this one's fun with the olives. Let's try that olive branch, right? So let's do an olive branch because I've got some brown. Okay, let's just take this for the brown right here. Brown. Now, what they do is when they're doing the branch, they leave some room here for the olives. So the branch is not necessarily going the all the way. There's some gaps in it. So we're just bringing it from here. We've got another little bit that comes off here. I'm just looking at what she has in her picture in order to draw that. And it comes down a little bit more. And then there's another little sprig that comes off here. It comes around a little bit more. Then there's an olive. So we'll leave space for that olive. And then it gets a little bit thicker here. We go, olive branch with space for an olive right there. And we've got another sprig right here and a couple little sprigs down here. Okay, cool. So that is kind of the brown that we created from here from some of our mixes. All right. So we've got some nice, we'll put the olives in first. So we want an olive green. That means we're going to take some of this yellow right here and we're going to mix it with some of that darker green. So let me just take some of this. Might as well mix it right in here to get sort of an olivey color, right? There we go. This is that, I think it's like a chromium oxide green, something like that. Huh. Okay, it's not as olivey as I want. So let's take a little bit of this from up here. Okay, that might work. So I'm going to just draw in. There's sort of an olive right here. So I'm giving myself the basic shape of the olive as it's growing right there. And then there's going to be another olive coming off of here. Let's just do it right here. Sort of over the leaf partly. I'm not doing it too, I'm not trying to be too perfect, right? Let's add a little bit of water in there. And then there's another olive up here, small, a little bit smaller one. Okay. There we go. Olive branch is coming. It's coming together. And that's just the beginnings of it. Make sure that I bring it up so you can see just the beginning of it, right? And now let's throw some leaves in there. So we're going to start with our lighter green for the leaves. Plenty of water, light green. And they're making these leaves nice and long and skinny. So let me bring it up a little bit more for you here. So they're very skinny leaves. That's one half of it. And then we'll just bring it here and do the other half of it. Okay. And then another one right here. There we go. Nice. Then we've got some that are coming out from here. Got one that comes out this way. This is where a good springy uh, round tip brush really help. A pointed tip round brush really helps to make these long, thin leaves like this. Let me do this one right here. There we go. Like that. And then we've got another one that comes here, sort of attaches to the same sprig there. And I need a little more color on there. Not a lot, just a little. Okay. And then we'll have a little one that sort of comes out here like this. And another one, a small one that comes here because this is the end of the leaf. So it's going to be a little bit younger. And then another one that comes underneath here. I'm sort of following along with her picture. All right. So there's our, so far, our olive branch, right? Now, if this green is too dark, I can just use my wet brush and I can pick up some of that color if I feel like it's too much. So there's definitely a push and pull in watercolor. There's laying down color and picking it back up again. Okay, let's go back to the olives. And um, we want something that may be a little bit more like this. This is the sap green, but I'm going to add it in with the same color that we had up here before. All right. There we go. So it's a little bit lighter, and I'm just filling in some of the white that I left on there, going right back over top of it. There. You're going to get a lot more dimension if you are layering like this. Okay. So we've got a little more layers. You know what? I like on the olives, I like a little bit of yellow. So let's just pick up a little bit of yellow. And then, thank you, watercolor, etc. Very nice olive branch, you said. I'm just throwing a little bit of yellow in there because I think that'll help that sort of olivey color, sort of differentiate it from the leaves, right? There you go. And then let's do something else. We need a little bit darker on the leaves. So now we've got the sap green. Ooh, look, the sap green's almost gone. Yay. I still have this phthalo blue and this PG7, the phthalo green. There's still a pretty good hunk of those in there, but I'm very close to finishing this palette, which makes me very happy. Okay, so let's just put some of the dark green to define the leaves a little bit more, right? Just add a little bit more interest to them. There we go. Just dropping it in there. So sort of the underside right there of the leaf, just to give it that extra dimension. So I'm using the sap green, which is just a darker green, to give it a little extra zhuzh there. Okay, and then here, bring it in this way. But you see all the different greens. So I've got sort of olivey going here to make the olives stand out, make them be more distinct from the leaves. And then I'm using some different greens on the leaves. Okay, there we go. There, this one right here. Nice. And a little bit more water to bring some more of that dark green into here. Lovely, lovely. Now, what I like to do with these a lot of times is I will just let it dry, and then I'll come back in with my markers like I showed you earlier on the together with the Galaxy whale, is to come back in and add in details with the markers for something like this. but I like it the way it is. But if you want to add a little bit of extra fun to it. Ooh, okay, here's something that looks like fun that we can do that I just saw in the book, a pistachio. I have a whole bag of pistachios in my cabinet in the kitchen. So let's do this little pistachio right here. Notice they're saying use some burnt sienna. So maybe what I'll do with this one is I will bring in this palette that I'm clearing over here too. You see how I have some browns on here? I don't have the greens, but I have the greens on this one, right? So I can use up some of the browns from here. And oh, good. This one that's raw sienna is already almost all gone. Yay. And that way we can use up a little bit of the um, Daniel Smith colors that I have in here. Okay, let's do a pistachio. Nice. Okay. So here I'm going to, let's see, I think I want to start with the green in the middle of the pistachio. Oops, hold on. I set that palette on top of my thing here. So let's do a pistachio over here. Can you see that okay? It looks like you can, yes. Okay, so let's take some of this light green. We'll start with the light green and plenty of water because we just want a little bit of a wash. So, ooh, and a little bit of yellow. So I'm just putting yellow on the tip there. So we're going to go like this and down the center of the pistachio. That sort of goes like that. It gets a little greener as it goes down and a little more yellow on top. So I actually put yellow on the tip and I had the green down further on there. Okay, let's just do this just a little bit like that. All right, cool, cool. There's our green. Now let's start with a light yellow right here. I have a light yellow. So this is going to come up this way and down. It is going to touch it, but I'm not going to touch it right now because it's too wet. Okay, let me just sort of bring this around like this. And it goes out and around and down. There we go. This is just putting in the shell, the baseline of the shell. Okay, let me come up here on this side, right? We have a little bit of the shell coming over here. Nice. Hello, shell. There we go. So we have the pistachio inside the shell. I'm going to bring it up closer for you because that pale yellow is super pale right now, right? Oh, okay. This is making me hungry. Yummy, yum, right? Okay. So now that we've got the basics in, let's come over here and start pulling some of these interesting colors. We have quinacridone sienna. This is one of my favorite colors from, well, there's so many beautiful colors that Daniel Smith makes, but this quinacridone sienna has an orange look to it. And I love that. So let's put that over there. And then the new gamboge. So let's take a little bit of this is an interesting natural sienna. So siennas are a natural pigment that come from a sienna stone or sienna rock. Okay. And this is Mont Amiata. So Monteamiata, natural sienna. So it's a sienna stone from a certain area of the world. And it's just a very pale version of sienna. And I like it for putting in like pale sort of yellowy browns. So let's start with that one and come in here and begin to sort of define the edges because it's a very light color of sienna, not dark. Okay, I'm adding extra water because I want to make it a little more pale as it goes up. There we go. Sort of define the edge there. Nice. Boop. Let's bring that around like that. Nice. Okay. And then bring some of it over here as well. Just put that in there and bring it around the outside like that. Okay. There we go. So that was the very pale Mont Amiata natural sienna. So let me bring it up close so that you can see there. Okay. And then now we're going to progressively put a little bit darker and a little bit darker. So now we're going to go to the quinacridone sienna right here, which has more of an orange look to it. So let's grab that right there. And I'm coming back over top of what I already put in there. You're going to see it's very orange. This sienna is very orange. The quinacridone sienna. Super duper orange there. Just bring that down in there. Just adding a little bit at a time. This is to me, this quinacridone sienna from Daniel Smith is very fiery. Um, let me show you on the other sheet so you can see what I mean. On the other page that we were just putting color on. See how it's very fiery? It's almost an orange, but still leaning just a little bit more toward the earthy colors. And so it blends beautifully when you're adding it into your designs. All right, let's go a little bit, just a little bit darker. So what I have over here is the, let me see, quinacridone burnt orange. So this is called quinacridone burnt orange, and that's this color over here, which is looks similar to the quinacridone sienna, but it's like a burnt version of it. So it's the next brownie version. So here we'll take some of that one right there. We'll drop that in a little bit more. Yeah, so it still has a little bit of the oranginess, but it's slightly more brown. All right. So we're just adding that in there. Nice. All right, Coolio. And then the last one that I'm going to go for is this dark brown, which is the burnt umber right here. I don't know where the tube went, but this is burnt. It's either burnt umber or burnt sienna. Huh. I don't have it handy, so I can't tell you, but I think it's the burnt umber. Let's see here. So it's darker. And we're going to put a little bit more of the darker right here. So it's more toward the inside like that. So the inside is showing right there. Here, we have to pull a little bit of this up because there was too much brown there. All right. I actually have some lunar black on here, which I use a lot of the Daniel Smith lunar black. A lot. Love it because it's granulating. It's a granulating black. Oh my gosh, it's so beautiful. And I combine I combine these browns with the lunar black just to get that little bit extra density out of it. So let's take a little bit of the lunar black and mix it with just a little bit of that brown to make it more of a sepia kind of color, and just drop that in right here at the part that would be the closest. Okay, awesome. Awesome. Well, I think you probably know that it's a pistachio. Let me put a little bit more of this darkness over in here to sort of define the edge a little bit more. There. Okay. And then I'm going to do a little bit more of the dark, which has the lunar black in with it. I'm going to bring that right down here where it would be sort of touching the table. right? Where there's going to be a little bit of shadow on it. Nice. Okay. Yay. So I'm not all the way done, but I'm almost done with this palette, freeing that palette up, right? And we're very close with this one, freeing this palette up, which makes me very happy. So these are so like this one is empty. So let's go ahead and clean this one up right here, right? Like that. This one is empty. Yay. So I'm just going to, this is what I do. I sit here in my studio and I clean up the different palettes just to see what I have. This one, this was the sap green. So it is essentially done right there. Let me get that out of there. Hallelujah. This is awesome. Thanks for coming along with me while I am cleaning out my palettes. I appreciate it. It's a job I have to do anyway, right? Okay. And then this was just the black gouache, that little bit of black gouache that I put in there. So we're going to clean that out like that. There's just a little bit of it that we were using for the galaxy. Okay, there's still a little bit of the green oxide in here, but it's such a small amount. I think I'm just going to take it out. You know what? It's not coming up. There's still a big old chunk right there. So I'm just going to do that and leave that right there, which I will have to come back and finish. This one is empty. This black right here that we made, we can empty that one. This little red purple, we can empty that one. This little bit of yellow, we can empty that one. Right? So this one is almost all the way done. We can clean this one out. There's not much left in there. I know a lot of times I'm like, but wait, there's paint there. But, you know, for the purposes of the clean palette challenge that we're doing tonight, yeah, I'm trying to get as much of this cleaned out as I can to at least show something. We did something here. We almost got to a clean palette, right? And a beautiful one it is. I'll try to find this one to link it in the description of the video on YouTube later tonight, because this is one of my, this one right here always gets filled up fast because it's one of my favorite ones to work with. Okay, let's get this. We can almost see light at the end of the tunnel, right? With that. Okay. So usually I will just leave whatever little bit is in there because I'm like, ah, I can use it. I can use it. But truthfully, y'all, I have about uh 400 or 500 tubes of watercolor paint, and my daughter, you know, pointed at me and said, "Mom, don't leave me with a lot of stuff." You know, someday when I pass away, I'm like, okay, you know what that means? I need to use a lot of watercolor paint. I need to keep using it because if I have, you know, 400, 500 tubes, then I better giddy up and do a lot more watercolor painting, right? So I'm very excited that we are almost done with this palette. Let's get that little bit out of there like that. Oh my gosh, look at that. So I would still call that successful, right? It's almost finished. I'll do the rest of this offline. I'll figure out a way to use up these colors, but I'm very hopeful based on what we did tonight that this palette will be done this week. Yay. And then I will have another fresh palette for squeezing out some fresh. That was fun to watch. Thank you. Thank you, Meow. Yes, I appreciate that. Yeah, see how there's just still a little bit of that that dark chromium oxide green there. There's a little chunk of the permanent green light, a little bit of the phthalo green and the phthalo blue, and a little chunk of yellow. So I don't want to just scrub those out. I want to go ahead and finish using them up, right? And then what I also want you to see then is with this paper, which is the block that I was showing you, it's perfectly flat right now. And I love that. That's what I love about using the blocks. I'm going to show you how to take the paper off so that you know how to remove a paper properly from that. Don't leave your girl with all the paint. That's right. Watercolors, etc. on YouTube said, haha, don't leave your girl with all the paint. Start painting more and more and more. That's right. You got it. So with your watercolor block, like I said, it says open right here. And there's a little area here where there's no glue. So normally if I do a water-based, I even do acrylic mixed media on this watercolor paper. You can do it on watercolor paper. So I normally will leave it overnight to completely dry so it's, beautifully flat. And then I come and there are two ways, depending on where I am in my studio, that I'll open it. One is to use what's called a block leaf, which I'm looking for right now. Okay, block leaf, where did you go? There it is. So this is called a block leaf, or some people just call it an envelope opener, but it says right on it, Turner block leaf. Okay. So that's one way to do it. I like the block leaf because the edges are not as sharp as a palette knife, but a palette knife is the other way here. So I'll show you both of them. So with the palette knife or the block leaf, you have to separate the one page right there. And then whether you're using the palette knife or the block leaf, you want to angle it. So if I'm going in this direction, I want to angle it that way so that I don't tear the paper. Because Lordy knows I have torn my paper a bunch of times because I wasn't paying attention. And that's really annoying after you've done a whole artwork, right? So this one, if I go this direction, I'm going to angle it like this so that it is going toward the back, and then bring it along like that. And that's loosening it, right? So now, same thing. If I'm going this way, I'm going to angle it so it's angled down in that direction like this as I go all the way around it. And that way I won't tear the paper. So whether I'm using the block leaf or I'm using the palette knife, either one works. There we go. And then, ta-da, I've got my piece of paper. Now I used lots of water right here on the pistachio and it's still a little bit wet. So I don't know if you can notice it on the back, but there's just like a tiny little area where the paper is doing this right here. And that's because of all the water that I used on it. But that is how you remove it from the block. Isn't that fun? I always like to, if I can, share that with you because I know a lot of artists they're hesitant to use blocks, but man, I love blocks because it keeps my artwork flat, especially when I'm doing collage on the surface and throwing a lot of acrylics at it. It really works well to use the block. All right, so I hope you. I just ordered tape. Tape. Oh, you mean to like tape down the sides of your watercolor paper? Meow, yes, over on whatnot. I think that's probably what you're referencing. But so I want to thank you for joining me for this challenge. Unfortunately, I didn't completely clear this off, but between that one and this one, I put a dent in it, right? So that I'm almost 2 clean palettes. What do you think about that? Wow. Right? So that I have a fresh palette to squeeze fresh paint in, and, I do love painting with fresh paint, but this is perfectly good, excellent paint, great quality paints, so, you know, there's nothing wrong with painting with the dry paint right here, but, I definitely love like the creaminess of the fresh paint. And Meow Yes says, "Have a great night. I'll look for your future shows." Thank you, Meow Yes. Yes, yes, yes. So I appreciate you joining me for this class.